Have you ever asked an AI a question and gotten an answer that just feels a little off, like it's confidently just guessing? Well, it turns out there's a really fascinating reason for that, and an even more fascinating solution that has quietly started a revolution in artificial intelligence.
Okay, let's just dive right in with a perfect example. When researchers asked a standard, powerful AI to define the middle ear, this is the answer it gave. I mean, read that. It's so confidently wrong, it's almost funny. And believe me, this isn't some rare cherry picked event. It actually points to a really fundamental problem.
And that brings us to the big question for this whole explainer. Why do these incredibly complex models, the ones trained on basically the entire internet, sometimes just make things up out of thin air? We call it hallucinating, and there's a reason it happens.
So here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the problem of confident guessing. Then we'll look at a brilliant open book solution. We'll see how it's used in the real world and check out the paper that started it all. We'll even touch on its limits. And finally, really understand the RAG revolution.
All right, first up, let's get right to the heart of this confident guessing thing. Because to really get the solution, you have to understand why AIs hallucinate in the first place. So here's the absolute most important thing to remember. A standard AI is fundamentally limited. It only knows what it learned from its massive, but still, fixed training data. That's it. It has no live connection to the outside world, no way to double-check facts, and it knows absolutely nothing that happened after its training was finished. The best way to think about this is with a simple analogy. Imagine a standard AI is a brilliant student about to take a massive exam. It has memorized thousands of textbooks, but here's the catch. It's a closed book exam. It can only rely on what it has memorized. So if you ask a question that wasn't in those books, it has no choice. It has to make its best educated guess. And that's where hallucinations come from. But what if there was a better way? This leads us to the open book solution, which is a deceptively simple idea that has completely changed the game for building AI we can actually trust. The whole big idea boils down to this one question. What if, instead of forcing the AI to take a closed book exam, we could just give it an open book? What if we let it look things up before it has to answer? And this brilliant idea works in two really simple steps. First, when you ask a question, the AI doesn't immediately try to answer. Instead, it hits pause and goes into a retrieve phase. It searches a huge, up-to-date library of information for relevant documents. Then, and only then, does it move on to the generate phase, where it uses the facts it just found to put together its final answer.
What's so wild about this is how it totally flips our intuition on its head. It turns out the key to making AI more reliable wasn't just about giving it a bigger brain with more training. It was about giving it a library card.
So this isn't just a cool theory. Let's take a look at how this open book approach actually works out in the real world in tools you might be using every single day without even realizing it.
So where would you see this?
Well, think about customer support bots that need the absolute latest product information. Or maybe an internal search tool at a big company that needs to make sense of thousands of private documents. Or, maybe most importantly, a medical AI assistant that needs to have the very latest research papers at its fingertips. Basically, any system that needs current, factual answers is a perfect fit for this. And this example from the research just shows it perfectly. When asked about the author Hemingway, the AI goes and retrieves two different documents. One mentions his novel A Farewell to Arms, and the other one talks about The Sun Also Rises. The AI then cleverly combines these two separate facts into one single, comprehensive, and most importantly, factually correct answer. Okay, so now that we've seen the idea in action, let's pull back the curtain and talk about the actual technology that makes it all work, and the groundbreaking paper that first introduced it to the world. The official name for this retrieve then generate method is Retrieval-Augmented Generation, or just RAG for short. You can think of it as a hybrid. It augments a standard AI's internal memory, what it memorized during training, with an external knowledge source that it can look stuff up in. This powerful approach was formally introduced to the world in a 2020 paper that came from a team of researchers over at Meta AI. And in it, they showed just how incredibly effective this simple idea could be. And, the results really do speak for themselves. When real people were asked to compare answers from a standard AI versus a RAG-powered AI, the difference was just staggering. Humans said the RAG answer was more factual almost 43% of the time, compared to just 7% for the standard model. It just flat out produces better, more trustworthy answers.
But hey, like any technology, RAG isn't a silver bullet. It's not perfect. It has its own unique limitations. And as we're about to see, some almost magical capabilities that come with its design. Okay, so the biggest limitation is this. A RAG system is only as good as its librarian, or its retrieval system. If it pulls up the wrong documents from the library, it's going to use those wrong facts to build its answer. The AI might generate a perfectly written, convincing sentence, but it's all based on flawed information. But here is RAG's superpower. A normal AI's knowledge is basically frozen in time. To update it, you have to do a massive, expensive retraining of the whole model. With RAG, you can just update the library. The researchers actually proved this. They gave a RAG model a 2016 version of Wikipedia, and sure enough, it could answer questions about 2016 world leaders. Then, and this is the amazing part, they just hot swapped the library to a 2018 version. And boom, without any retraining at all, it could now correctly answer questions about 2018. This is a massive, massive advantage. So, this combination of being more factual and way easier to update, well, that's why RAG has kicked off nothing short of a revolution, especially when it comes to using AI in the real world. Today, RAG is probably the single most important AI technique used in business settings. Why? Simple. It directly solves the biggest worries companies have about AI. It makes it verifiable. You can actually see the sources it used. It's updatable, like we just saw. And all of that makes it fundamentally more trustworthy than a black box AI that's just guessing. And RAG is really a key building block for the future of AI. The way to think about it is that RAG gives an AI a reliable external memory. Now, when developers combine that memory with the ability for an AI to take actions or use other tools, well, that's when you get the foundation for the truly capable AI agents and assistants that we're all starting to see today. So, let's end with this thought. The RAG revolution is a really fundamental shift in thinking. It moves an AI's knowledge from being something entirely trapped inside its own head to being something it can look up in an external library. And if that's the future, it raises a new and really powerful question. Who gets to be the librarian? Who curates the library of the future?